Great day, folks. It is Caleb in my little hobby home here. Thoroughly enjoy being with you. It's such a blessing, such a joy to be sharing with you. And today I'm going to be doing a small snippet on some very interesting information. I'd like to share some things with you and get this started right off. Thank you so much for coming and listening. First thing I'm going to bring up is the topic. Today I'm going to discuss with you the issues surrounding the national emergency. And if I may, I'd like to share something with you very quickly. Okay, first thing we're going to be sharing here is from Wikipedia. And the reason why I go to Wikipedia is because these are very simple for people to find. I don't do the enormous articles with reference to keeping it simple. The National Securities Act, enacted September 14, 1976, codified as 50 U.S.C. 1601-1651. It's U.S. federal law passed to stop open-ended states of a national emergency and formalize the power of Congress to provide certain checks and balances on the emergency powers of the president. The act of Congress imposes certain procedural formalities on the president when invoking such powers. The perceived need for the law arose from the scope and number of laws granting special powers to the executive in times of national emergency. The reason why I'm bringing this up, and let me stop the share here for a moment. My purpose for bringing this up is I'm hearing all the back and forth regarding POTUS's shutting down the government. Look, folks, this has all been intended. This is all part of the plan. And this next segment, the national emergencies, is the answer to the angst that you're feeling. Because the president needs to get to a point where he can evoke national emergency, because that gives him a certain amount of powers codified by Congress and allows him to do a number of things. And I'm going to investigate those things with you very quickly so that you can see that this is part of the planned intent of POTUS's and Q's plan. So bear with me for a moment. I'm going to share something else with you. Okay, this is the U.S. federal government continuity of operations document. Now, the continuity of operations is what happens when we're in a situation that the government has to continue operations having been shut down. Well, I want to assure you folks that it's already been determined as to what will be done when there is a shutdown. This is a document on the U.S. federal government continuity of operations document, or business continuity planning, and it also covers things like Policy Directive 40, and I'm going to show you those things in a moment. But it covers the continuity of operations for the U.S. federal government should we be in a circumstance like was portended by the national emergency. So let's go back to the national emergency document. We're going to scroll down a little bit. Okay, the first president issuing an emergency proclamation was Woodrow Wilson. On February 5th, 1917, issued the following: I found that there exists a national emergency arising from the insufficiency of maritime tonnage to carry the products of farm, forest, mines, and manufacturing industries in the United States to their consumers abroad and within the United States. Now, there's been many presidents that have declared emergencies, and they've declared emergencies for the purpose of enacting specific powers that are allotted to them through the Second Amendment of the Constitution that gives the president the right to do specific things during emergency situations. So he's allowed to declare an emergency, and once he declares an emergency, there's a certain things that he's allowed to do. Now, there are some exceptions, and you will see that it's very odd that the exceptions that have been labeled are in a check against the president, but they seem strange for those that have been checked against him. Now, I want to read those really quickly, but I'll show you those on screen here shortly. 10 U.S.C. 2304, allowing exception of national defense contracts from competitive bidding. 10 U.S.C. 3310, 6386, 8313, regulating the promotion, retirement, and separation of military offices. 12 U.S.C. 95, regulating transactions on foreign gold and silver. 40 U.S.C. 278, regulating federal property purchases and contracts. 41 U.S.C. 15 and 203, limiting the assignment of claims against the federal government. And 50 U.S.C. 1431 through 1435, enabling the president to make national defense contracts outside of otherwise applicable rules. There's a list of exceptions. It's in Public Law 95-223, 1997. It repealed the emergency clause of 12 U.S.C. 95 and arranged for an authority to expire according to the normal provisions of the National Emergency Act. Okay. Congress has delegated at least 136 distinct statutorial emergency powers to the president under the declaration of emergency, with only 13 of these requiring a declaration from Congress. Isn't that strange? 13 require a declaration from Congress. Emergency presidential powers are dramatic and have ranged from suspending all laws regulating chemical and biological weapons, including the ban on human testing, suspending Clean Air Act, implementation plans or excess emissions penalty upon petition of state governor, to authorizing constructing military construction projects. Well, that's a really interesting one. So we're going to take a look at that in a moment here. That's 10 U.S.C. A 2808. So let's open that up in another link here. You mean the president can declare a national emergency for military construction projects? Who would have guessed that, huh? Seems kind of odd, huh? Well, let's check that out. Come on, come on, come on. Well, we come over here to Cornell Law School, and this is from Cornell Law School EDU, and it says, 10 U.S. Code 2808, Construction Authority in the event of a declaration of war or national emergency. In the event of a declaration of war, the president of the national emergency, by the president of a national emergency in accordance with the National Emergencies Act 50 U.S.C. 1601, that requires use of the armed forces, the Secretary of Defense, without regard to any other provisional law, may undertake military construction projects and may authorize the secretaries of the military departments to undertake military construction projects not otherwise authorized by law that are necessary to support such use of the armed forces. Such projects may be undertaken only within the total amount of funds that have been appropriated for military construction, including funds appropriated for family housing that have not yet been obligated. B, when a decision is made to undertake military construction projects authorized by this section, the Secretary of Defense shall notify in an electronic medium pursuant to Section 480 of this title the appropriate committees of Congress of the decision of the estimated cost of the construction projects, including the cost of any real estate action pertaining to those construction projects. C, the authority described in subsection A shall terminate with respect to any war or national emergency at the end of the war or national emergency. So folks, looks like to me, not only does POTUS have the authority to declare a national emergency, he has the authority to declare a national emergency for national security construction projects, and Congress can't override him. And if they do override him through an exception, 53 to 47 kind of rings a bell, doesn't it? So let's go back and take a look at that national security doc again and scroll down a little bit down here. Beyond the National Emergencies Act, Congress has established 3 other emergency power frameworks. Those deserve a look, folks. 42 U.S.C. 247, Public Health Service Act of 1944, 42 U.S.C. 5121, Stafford Act, replacing the Disaster Relief Act of 1974, as amended in 2000 and 2006, 22 U.S.C. Foreign Assistance Act of 1961, as amended, include the Arms Export Control Act of 62. So what we've got, he's got authority to declare a national emergency. He's got authority within that national emergency to suspend certain functions and rights, and he has the authority to control continuity up, run the business continuity plan, which consists of the following. A continuity of operations plan has been part of the U.S. government operations since Eisenhower, provided various measures designed to ensure the government of the United States would be able to continue operations after a nuclear war. So this is a circumstance where the government has been designed to stay open even in the event of a terrible emergency. These measures included construction of underground facilities such as the Mount Weather, a hollowed-out privately nuclear weapon-proof mountain in northeastern Virginia, and the Raven Rock Mountain Complex near Camp David in Maryland. The public can now tour one such facility intended to house the entire United States Congress on the grounds of Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. See also Project Greek Island. Other provisions of the plan included executive orders designating certain government officials to assume cabinet and other executive branch positions and carry out the responsibilities of the position if the primary office holders are killed. There has been a formal line of succession to the presidency since 1792, found in the Presidential Succession Act of 47. This runs from the Vice President to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, President pro tempore of the Senate, and then through the cabinet secretaries in the sequence specified by Congress. Continuity of the government plans are not limited to the federal government. The majority of states have constitutional provisions that provide for the succession of government in the event of an enemy attack. Okay, so once the continuity of operations plan is in effect, the first directly following following September 11th attacks, it was in place because George W. Bush put it in place. Very interesting stuff to go back and look over this. It does lack congressional oversight. That is strange. Requested the classified and more detailed version of the government's continuity of operations plan in a letter signed by him, chairperson of House Homeland Security Committee, which is supposed to have access to the confidential government information. The president refused to provide the information, to the surprise of Congressional Committee. As of August 2007, efforts by the committee to secure a copy of the plan continued. Why is he allowed to avoid that? Because under the auspices of state secrets, the president does have the right to keep things secret from everyone. So when you look at what POTUS is doing, folks, you need to really look at what is currently legally in position for him to handle all of this that's going on. So let's take a look at this PDF here. Interesting PDF. This is the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Federal Emergency Management Agency Federal Continuity Directive issued January 17, 2017. And this provides, it's an interesting document, 64 pages. It goes through exactly who does what to whom with what at what time, who is responsible for what, there's a super secession that certain committees, certain departments fold over to other departments during the time of an emergency like that. So this really gives POTUS the capacity to have a business continuity plan, close down the government, be able to furlough whoever he wants, be able to have them just manned or personed by the appropriate individuals who are meant to cover the different departments that are essential, and those things are defined as essential. So we need to take a look at that. What can go on during the state of emergency? Bear with me a second. I'm going to open this other document up. Hey, I love you folks, and it really are. These are super interesting times in which we live, and they do call for a certain amount of backbone. And so, I completely understand where everybody is getting excited, but we really need to be what the Lord says, not have the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and of a sound mind. So what does a sound mind do? Sound mind prepares for what's coming. So this is what I believe is coming, so I'm preparing for it in my head. These are the articles pertaining to the plans or actions of counter-city civil strife in the United States of America in the times of national emergency. Yes, folks, you heard it here. They already have a plan for this civil detention in the United States. Articles may also qualify if they pertain to detention of individuals held without trial, excluding military conflicts. Okay, so they've already got a plan to under the National Emergencies Act to detain people. So let's look at that. What does it say in the National Emergencies Act? It doesn't say anything. So where do we have to go? We have to look at detaining people in the National Emergencies Act. So let's find this information. Okay, here we go. Good thing I did a little research before I came on here. Let's see if we can find this information. Okay, I give you Rex 84. It's short for Readiness Exercise 1984, was a classified scenario and a drill developed by the United States federal government to detain large numbers of United States citizens deemed to be national security threats in the event that the president declared a state of national emergency. I give you POTUS about to declare a state of national emergency. This plan was first revealed in detail in a major daily newspaper for the reporter Alfonso Chardi on 5 July 87 edition of Miami Herald. So you can check it out if you want to check it out. Possible reasons to such a roundup were reported to be widespread opposition to U.S. military invasion abroad, such as the United States were to directly invade Central America. To combat what the government perceived as subversive activities, the plan also authorized the military to direct ordered movements of civilian populations at state and regional levels, according to Professor Diana Reynolds. Existence of a master military contingency plan, REX 84, was part of the Garden Plot, and a similar earlier exercise, Lantern Spike, were originally revealed by journalist Rod Ridenour, who summarized his findings in the article Encounter Spy. Transcripts from the Iran-Contra hearings in 87 record the following dialogue between Congressman Jack Brooks and Oliver North's attorney Brendan Sullivan and Senator Daniel Inouye, the Democratic chair of the Joint Senate House Committee. And I will quote this conversation. Colonel North, this is Congressman Jack Brooks. Colonel North, in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans of the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster? Brenda Sullivan, North's counsel, agitatedly. Mr. Chairman, question. Senator Daniel Inouye, I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that? Brooks, I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in the Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution, and I was deeply concerned about it and wondered if that was an area in which he had worked. I believe that it was, and I want to get his confirmation. Inouye, may I most respectfully request that this matter not be touched upon at this stage. If we wish to get into this, I'm certain arrangements can be made for an executive session. So, folks, look, you just heard it there. Suspend the American Constitution. Round people up. These are plans that are already in paperwork, not just from POTUS, not just from Q, but also in paperwork for both sides of the House and Senate. Contingency plans for the U.S. government for rounding up people perceived by the government to be subversive or a threat to civil order have existed for many decades. For example, from 67 to 71, the FBI kept a list of 100,000 people to be rounded up as subversive, dubbed the ADEX list. Let's take a look at the ADEX list. The FBI indexes are a system used to track American citizens and other people by the FBI. Before the adoption for the FBI of computerized databases, the name signifies that the lists were originally made in paper index card compiled by J. Edgar Hoover before he became director of the FBI. The index list was used to track U.S. citizens and others believed by the FBI to be dangerous to national security and was subdivided into various divisions, which generally were rated based on different classes of danger the subject was thought to represent. There is no indication the FBI stopped adding names onto its index list before September 11, 2001. After September 11, 2001, the date from which the FBI folded its index list into the terrorist screening database is unknown. While the FBI consolidates the TSDB from other lists and manages its formation, the TSDB is currently available to all U.S. national security agencies, while select information contained on the TDSB or TSDB is forwarded to other nations and in international security agencies. So, folks, there's a list. There is a list of folks that are on this list to be rounded up in the event of a national emergency, in the event that the POTUS has to exercise his constitutionally mandated and Congress provided authority to declare a national emergency for whatever means he needs to declare it. And if there are any exceptions or if there are any changes to it, who makes those changes to it? Well, guess what? Republicans own the Senate. So, folks, I give you the plan. I give you the plan because this is the plan. The plan is to evoke a national emergency. The plan is to evoke that said emergency because it's already been stipulated in Congress that that POTUS is allowed to do construction projects with the military during that national emergency. And he's also already got a business continuity plan, and he's also already got a plan of action to round up the folks that are considered dangerous. And where did this come from? It came from a guy named Flynn. Imagine that, a guy named Flynn. Now I don't know if there's any relation. I haven't checked into that. Perhaps I should have briefly. But let me bring up who started this, okay? Flynn was born in New York City and began his government career in 1897 after receiving a public school education. Flynn began his career as Manhattan plumber. His first law enforcement job was agent in the United States Secret Service. He spent many years combating counterfeiting, which led to investigation and arrests of the Black Hand, extortionists, and members of the American Mafia, as well as the Morello crime family. Flynn collaborated with New York Police Department Detective Giuseppe Joe Petrosino, who was murdered in 1909 in Palermo, Sicily, where he was tracing the backgrounds of the gangsters plaguing New York cities. Petrosino's murder was never officially solved, but the author and historian Mike Dash implicates the likely gunman, and his accomplice says that there is little doubt that Giuseppe Morello was behind it. Flynn and his operatives built the case that culminated in 1910 convictions of Morello and his associates and their imprisonment in Atlanta Federal Prison. I have to ask you, folks, Mafia's Roman folks, aren't they? Huh. Been allowed to function inside the system for years and years and years. I wonder who supports them over there. Maybe Vatican City? What do you think? Maybe City of London? Flynn gained recognition in 1911 when he successfully reorganized the New York City Detective Force. He later returned to the Secret Service as chief, 1912 to 1917. Interesting times. During World War I, and served as chief of United States Railroad Administration Secret Service. Wow. Pay so much, investigating threats of sabotage. In 1919, Flynn was named director of the Bureau of Investigation. Attorney General Palmer praised his new appointee as the leading organizing detective of America. Well, this fellow is the one who came up with this list, and guess what he did? He told J. Edgar Hoover to go do it. Now, it's always been given to J. Edgar Hoover, that J. Edgar Hoover was the one that started this because he was a nefarious character. But it was this fellow Flynn who ordered him to do it. Interesting, huh? Poor man from New York who put down the mafia. This is, I believe, in my mind, conclusive evidence that this shutdown was a planned event. This shutdown was a planned event to evoke national emergency. This national emergency was a planned event to evoke the right to construct the border wall. This construction of the border wall is within POTUS's designate historical rights and those allocated by Congress, and it is not one of the 13 exceptions. And additionally, if he did want to do anything exceptional during the national emergency, he has the backing of the Senate, which is 53-47. You see why the Senate becomes so important, folks? So they have a plan for business continuity, which guarantees that only certain departments, essential functions, I believe the term is, national essential functions will be operative. Which POTUS gets to determine which are national essential functions, and it's all stipulated already in law. And they've got a business continuity plan, and the emergency will be legal, and POTUS will restructure the government, and he will build the wall and arrest a whole bunch of people, because they've got a plan to arrest everyone that is potentially dangerous, that is on the current terrorist list. And they've brought all the military home, and they've notified all the FBI in the cities, and I believe that this is what's going to occur. Now, there may be other information that comes up that steers us a different direction, but in my heart of hearts, looking at this information, I believe it's reasonably conclusive to assume that this is part of the plan. So, folks, take hope. Take hope. Take courage. Take joy in the fact that we have God standing out on the field of battle, and God is the man of war, and he's fighting for us. And in that battle, he has brought up certain soldiers and characters and people that he's risen up to fight this battle. And one of those is our own beloved President Trump. And this plan is intricate. It is wonderfully manipulative, and it uses current law and the ability to evoke his powers given him by the Constitution to do what he's got to do. And so, look, the only place we can be here is rooting for him, understanding, researching, and being courageous and standing on the field of battle in a faithful position, believing that God has already won this war and that we're going to come through this and we're going to get our country back. And that's because we've been praying for it, and the Lord has heard. And so I thank you for the opportunity to do a small meeting for you. And I hope this has been interesting. And if you have any questions, please point them to me through DM. I am Caleb55. Would love to answer your questions. Additionally, you can find me on Twitter at Caleb55. I've done massive tweet storms recently, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. And I just want you to know that I'm praying for you, and I love you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you once again. Great day.